You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and I have to start with the Washington football team cutting Alex Smith. It's something that had been rumored for a while. Now, according to Kim Jones and Ian Rappaport of NFL.com, it's probably going to happen. Now, I like this move for Washington, but I don't love it. I like it because you can do better than Alex Smith. The guy's 36 years old. He's going to be 37 on May 7th. And in his 6 starts last year, he didn't set the world on fire. He wasn't awful. Washington did go 5-1. They don't win the division without Smith. The thing is, though, like I said, he didn't set the world on fire. Threw for less than 200 yards a game, 1,582 yards to be specific, 6 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. You can do a lot better than Alex Smith. Also, cutting him saves Washington $14.7 million if they cut him before June 1st. $19 million if they cut him after June 1st. So Washington will have either $53 million or $57 million in cap space after processing the release of Alex Smith. Here's why I'm not in love with it. And I know what the counter is gonna be. Just let me say why I'm not in love with cutting Smith. What's the plan? What are you gonna do at quarterback? Are you gonna roll with Taylor Heineke? Are you gonna roll with Kyle Allen? Are you gonna make a play for a guy like Darnold, Tua, Watson, one of those types of guys? Or are you going to look to the draft? Are you going to take a guy like Lance, Trask, or Jones? If I was a fan of the Washington football team, I'd be a little nervous because now there's a lot of uncertainty about what you're going to do at the most important position in sports. You want to tell me it was uncertain anyway? Because you have no idea what Alex Smith is going to do for a full season, if he's even going to be able to start a full season? I understand that. But you can pencil Alex Smith in as your starter and feel relatively good about it. You know that Smith is going to give you a chance to win. And if you have a strong backup, like Washington probably does in Heineke, I think we've learned that he's a legitimate NFL quarterback, I'd be okay with it. See, what I wouldn't have minded for Washington was them moving on from Kyle Allen, because I really don't think he's that good. I don't think he's awful, but I don't think he's great. Drafting a quarterback like Lance, Trask, or Jones, letting him sit the full year, let Smith start for as long as he can, and if he can't go anymore, you roll with Taylor Heineke. And I wouldn't be opposed to starting Lance, Trask, or Jones if push came to shove. He would just start out the season as the third-string quarterback. I wouldn't mind that. It gives you a lot of certainty for what you're going to do at quarterback. But I know what the counter is. The counter is, Jacob, it's March 1st. The offseason hasn't even gotten off the ground yet. You don't need a full roster now. And I get it. You're right. You're 100% right. That Washington doesn't need to have their starting quarterback in place right now. And again, I don't hate this move. It makes sense. How much more does Alex Smith really have in the tank? It was a great story, what he did last year. Is it sustainable for a full season? I don't know. See, now the thing is, what you've done is, you've introduced a lot of uncertainty at the quarterback position in Washington. Again, this was expected. A lot of people thought Alex Smith was going to be cut. But now you really have no idea who the starting quarterback is going to be week 1 in the upcoming NFL season. And do you really want that uncertainty as you're looking to defend your NFC East title? I feel like this move indicates that Washington really wants to go with a younger quarterback next year. And that's fine. It's what every team wants to do. But if you're looking to defend a division title, does a guy like Darnold, Tua, Heineke, Kyle Allen, or one of the rookies really give you a lot of confidence in repeating? I don't see them getting Deshaun Watson. Washington has made splashy moves like that before, and it hasn't worked. A little bit of a spoiler alert. The story that I'm going to talk about next involves Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't see much of a difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and Alex Smith. Garoppolo is just a younger Alex Smith. They both have big question marks when it comes to injuries. You want to tell me a guy like Teddy Bridgewater? It's possible, but I'm not 100% sold on the notion that Carolina's gonna move on from him. All in all, I know why Washington moved on from Smith. I can't begrudge him for it. The only thing I'll say is, I don't like the fact that we have no idea what they're going to do at quarterback going forward. I understand that there's a whole offseason to flesh that out. I just don't like that uncertainty. And Alex Smith will land on his feet. A team will give him a chance to compete for a starting job next year. The Patriots would make a ton of sense. The Texans would make some sense if and when they trade Deshaun Watson. Maybe the Broncos, depending on how they feel about Drew Lock. The Eagles would make a ton of sense. Smith obviously knows the division. And I don't think anyone is 100% sold on Jalen Hurts. Smith will land on his feet. There's no question about that. Okay. Now it's time to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. A guy who people speculated could be on the move, but we never heard it from a concrete source. Well, that's changed. Ben Volen of the Boston Globe wrote, and I quote, "Many around the league still expect Garoppolo to be available." And Joseph Person of The Athletic said that the Niners have spoken to the Panthers about a possible Teddy Bridgewater trade. So, to put that another way, less than 13 months after leading the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl appearance, their first playoff appearance since 2013, Jimmy Garoppolo could be traded. The NFL, the ultimate what have you done for me lately league. But in all seriousness, I don't mind the Niners looking to move on from Garoppolo. I don't like Garoppolo. I've never been 100% sold on Garoppolo. Yes, 2 years ago, magical season. Completed 69% of his passes for just under 4,000 yards. 27 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. Really, really good season. Last year he only played in 6 games. And here's the thing. The 6 starts that he got last year is the second most he's ever had in a season. So, yes, it behooves the Niners to look for a more stable quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. I just find it funny that in less than 13 months, a little over a year after taking the Niners to the Super Bowl, the Niners are looking to move on from Garoppolo. Like I said, what have you done for me lately? There's really only one team that could trade for Garoppolo. And that's to the team whose head coach, GM, Grand Poobah, whatever term you want to use, never wanted to get rid of him in the first place. That, of course, is the New England Patriots. There were reports that came out after the Garoppolo trade that said that Belichick didn't want to move on from Garoppolo. He wanted to keep him around. Whether he was truly prepared to move on from Tom Brady, we'll never know. Maybe the plan was for Garoppolo to sit on the bench for an incredibly long time. But there were reports that said that Robert Kraft was really the one who twisted Belichick's arm and said, hey, this is the trade you're doing. You're moving Garoppolo for a second rounder. Now, I don't know what the truth is. I don't know if it was Belichick's decision, Kraft's decision, or somewhere in the middle. What I do know is that bringing Jimmy Garoppolo back to New England makes the Patriots a wildcard contender. They lost a lot of games last year because of shoddy quarterback play. Cam Newton's done. His days of being a high-level starter in this league are over. It brings up the question, what are the Patriots going to do at quarterback? Does anyone want to go to New England? Does anyone want to play for Belichick? I don't know. There was a report that came out that said that Matthew Stafford wanted to go to any team in the NFL except the Patriots. Brady left. You get the sense that the only guy who would be willing to sign with the Patriots is someone with a previous connection to the organization. We live in a world of player empowerment. And that's not very conducive to what Belichick does. Could they draft a quarterback? Yes, absolutely they could. The notion that they view Jarrett Stidham as a legitimate starting option next year is ludicrous. Jarrett Stidham has failed in every opportunity he's had to seize that job. So if you want a young quarterback, go to the draft. That's fine. I'd be interested to see how the Patriots develop a guy like Lance Trask or Jones. It'd be fascinating. But I don't think the Patriots would have the patience for the natural rookie mistakes that come with being a new quarterback. You know who's not going to make those mistakes? Jimmy Garoppolo. In fact, I'll even go a step further. The Patriots could trade for Garoppolo and still take a quarterback high in the draft. You can pencil Garoppolo into being your starter. That's all well and good, but you know he's going to miss some games. Let a guy like Lance, Trask, or Jones be the backup to Garoppolo. I have no problem with that. And then when you're ready for that youngster to take over, move on from Garoppolo. Outside of his base salary, which you save if you move on from him, he's not making a lot of money in this coming season and the season after. If the Niners are gonna move on from Garoppolo, which is a big if, I don't think John Lynch wants to move on from Garoppolo. But if he does decide to move on from Garoppolo, if he can get a better quarterback, the only team that I could really see making a big offer on Garoppolo is the Patriots. Moving on now to the Texans cutting Nick Martin. And talk about doing literally everything possible to burn the bridge that you once had with Deshaun Watson. I didn't think it was possible for the Texans to find a way to tick him off even more. But they did. They cut the only center he's ever known in the NFL. And a good center, too. A really good pass blocker. Not a good run blocker. Nick Martin has never been a good run blocker. In fact, that was the knock on him coming out of Notre Dame, if I remember correctly. But he's always been a good pass blocker. 74 pass blocking grade according to Pro Football Focus last year. You want to talk about burning bridges? The Texans are doing more than that. They're salting the earth so a bridge can never be built there again. They are prepared to blow this team up. They're gearing up for a rebuild of epic proportions. I don't care what they say. They can say, no, we're not trading Deshaun Watson. He's our quarterback. We're going to play this thing out. No, it's not true. There is no possible way that the Texans will open up next year with Deshaun Watson on their roster. This move all but cements it. I don't know if Watson and Martin were best friends off the field, but what I do know is that the relationship between the quarterback and his center is a very close one. Actions speak louder than words. I don't see how the Texans can make the moves they've made and still build around Deshaun Watson. I really think he's going to the Jets. As for where Martin's going to end up, the Steelers would make sense, since Maurkice Pouncey just retired. The Packers would make sense, since it seems like they're gonna move on from Corey Linsley. The Jets are certainly possible. Whatever team signs Martin, you gotta think is gonna have a leg up on all the other teams in the Watson sweepstakes. I'm not saying he's the be-all, end-all, but it'll certainly help. I wouldn't mind Martin on the Jets. Wouldn't love it. Like I said in respect to Corey Linsley the other day, the Jets have bigger fish to fry. But I wouldn't hate it. In breaking news that I was just alerted to, J.J. Watt is going to the Cardinals. You want to talk about a dark horse team? We heard the Bills, the Packers, the Browns, the Steelers, although they had faded out late in the process. It's the Cardinals. According to Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network, Watt will sign a 2-year deal worth $31 million to reunite with DeAndre Hopkins. This is a fantastic move for the Cardinals. You take a look at their defensive ends last year. Primarily, it was Zach Allen and Jordan Phillips. Allen only played 505 snaps and had just a 54.9 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. Meanwhile, Phillips only played 266 snaps in 9 games and had a 54.4 overall grade, according to Pro Football Focus. The D-line was really their Achilles heel last year. Their linebackers were fine. Their secondary was really, really good. Their biggest issue was the D-line. Now you just added a future Hall of Famer, probably. Wow. Hey, I'll say this. The Arizona Cardinals are now a playoff contender. I mean, yeah, they've got a bunch of free agents that they need to bring back, and not a lot of room to do it. Not counting this deal, the Cardinals have just over $11 million in cap space this year. But I'll say this. If they cut Jordan Phillips and designate him as a post-June 1st cut, they'd save $5.5 million. If they backloaded this deal, that gives them room to sign J.J. Watt. Granted, not much room to do anything else in free agency, but that's what the draft is for. Look, when you have the opportunity to sign J.J. Watt, you do it, and you just make the other pieces fit around him. This is a fantastic move for the Cardinals. It makes them a playoff contender next year. There's no question about that. In this early portion of the offseason, no division has been more active than the NFC West. The Rams trade for Matthew Stafford. The Cardinals signed J.J. Watt. Jimmy Garoppolo is in trade rumors. And Russell Wilson is in trade rumors. The NFC West is going to be a dogfight this coming season. Alright, now I'll give you some NBA Valk talk. And I'll stay in the realm of people connected to Houston. According to Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, Victor Oladipo turned down the biggest extension that the Rockets could offer him. A 2-year deal worth $45.2 million. When free agency rolls around, the Rockets will be able to offer him more money and more years, but it is noteworthy that Oladipo turned down that extension. It brings up the question, should the Rockets trade the best tangible asset that they got in the James Harden trade? At the end of the day, draft picks are pieces of paper. We have no idea where they're going to be in the draft, who's going to be available. They're pieces of paper. In terms of tangible assets, the Rockets got Victor Oladipo, Rodion Kurucs, and Dante Exum. Oladipo is the best player out of those three. But let's think about it. Should the Rockets flip Oladipo? The answer is yes. I don't see any way that Oladipo re-signs with the Rockets. Who would want to commit long-term to that team? They have nothing. They have no future. They have a bunch of picks. That's all it is. You have no idea where those picks are going to be. It's going to be a long time before they're relevant. You can't expect the players that they take with those picks to be guys like Michael Jordan, LeBron James, and Kobe Bryant. It's going to take that team a while to build themselves up with those picks. Can they do it? The answer is yes. It's just going to take them a long time. In the interim, though, the Rockets are going to stink. And my God, do they stink. They are the third worst team in the NBA right now. They've lost 11 straight. They are a joke. They are 11-21. Who would want to sign long-term with that team? Yes, trade Victor Oladipo. Get anything you can for him. And when that trade is done, think about how stupid you are for not taking Karis LeVert and or Jared Allen in exchange for Harden. There's no question about it. The Rockets would be better off in the long run if they had LeVert and or Allen than Oladipo. That's just fact. LeVert they could have easily had because they flipped LeVert for Oladipo. Allen, it's certainly possible. Maybe the Rockets take one or two less picks and they get Allen. And I'll tell you, LeVert and Allen, that's a solid duo to build around. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's a lot better than what the Rockets have now. The Rockets are in for some tough sledding, boyo. Let me tell you. Moving on now to Hornets Kings. An incredible comeback by a gutsy Hornets team. A fun Hornets team. A Hornets team that could make the playoffs this year. You saw the reasons why yesterday. The Hornets are down 8 with just over a minute to go. LaMelo Ball commits a flagrant foul. De'Aaron Fox misses his 2 free throws. The Kings then get the ball back. Marvin Bagley misses a layup. Good defense by Ball. Terry Rozier hits a big 3 to make it a 5-point game. Marvin Bagley gets fouled. He misses his 2 free throws. Terry Rozier attempts a 3. He gets fouled by Harrison Barnes. Rozier hits his 3 free throws. It's a 2-point game at this point. De'Aaron Fox hits a jumper. 4-point game. PJ Washington hits a 3. Buddy Hield gets fouled. He hits 1 of 2. And then the craziest end you'll ever see. Malik Monk converts a crazy and 1 layup and hits the free throw to ultimately win the game for the Hornets. I had praised the Kings earlier in the season. They're 1-9 in their last 10. Forget about it. They're dead to the world. They're not making the playoffs. The Hornets, though, it's very possible. If PJ Washington can step up like he did yesterday, I'm not saying drop 42 every game, but he's a talented player. He has the ability to step up. LaMelo Ball looks really good. He had a double-double yesterday. Miles Bridges off the bench had 13. Malik Monk off the bench had 21. This is a fun Hornets team. It could make the playoffs. There's no question about that. In fact, at this very moment, They're a playoff team. They're the 8th seed. But that really doesn't mean much because the Eastern Conference is so clustered right now. The Knicks are the 4 seed. And give them all the credit in the world, alright? I've said this before. I wouldn't want to face them in the playoffs. Their defense is scary. The thing is, though, they're only 1.5 games up on the 10-seeded Bulls and 3.5 games up on the 12-seeded Wizards. If you want to take it even further than that, they're 4.5 games up on the 14-seed Cavaliers. Only 3 teams in the East are guaranteed to make the playoffs. The Nets, the Sixers, and the Bucks. They will be the top 3. I don't know in what order they're going to be the top 3, but they're going to be the top 3. After that, it's a crapshoot. It could be the Knicks, or they could choke. They're the Knicks. It's very possible they could choke. The Heat are rounding into form. They've won 6 straight. The Celtics have a really good roster. The Raptors have a really good roster. The Hornets are fun. The Pacers are slumping right now, but I don't expect that to be the case all throughout the year. The Bulls, probably not. The Hawks, I wouldn't put anything past Trae Young. The Wizards, probably not. The Magic, probably not. And the Cavs, probably not. But it is a crapshoot. Make no mistake about that. I do want to talk about a couple really sad deaths that happened in the sports world. The first is Irving Grundman, who died on Friday at the age of 92. It's okay if you don't know the name Irving Grundman, unless you're a big Canadians fan or a big hockey fan. You're probably not going to know him. But he was a good GM for the Canadians. From the second Grundman got the job, he was behind the 8 ball. Sam Pollock retired after the Canadians won the 78 Stanley Cup. Grundman interviewed for the job despite having no experience in hockey. Scotty Bowman interviewed for the job, and Al McNeil interviewed for the job. So who's the least likely person to get that job? The guy who didn't win a Stanley Cup for the Canadians as their head coach, right? Well, Grundman got it. And he proved to be a good GM. His first draft was 1978. He made some very shrewd picks. He picked Dave Hunter with the 17th overall pick. Keith Acton in the 6th round, former Islander. Vyacheslav Fedosov, who would go on to win 2 Stanley Cups. He's now in the Hall of Fame. Fedosov was a 12th round pick. And in the 19th round, Grundman took Chris Nealon, one of the greatest goons that the hockey world has ever seen. In Grundman's first year with the Habs, they won the Stanley Cup. They beat the Rangers in 5 games. That was Scotty Bowman's last year as Canadiens head coach. Every year that Grundman was in charge of the Habs, they made the playoffs. Grundman's biggest claim to fame is his drafting. He took Max Naslund in the second round of the 79 draft. And in the third round, he took Guy Carbonneau. The year after that, the Habs had the first overall pick. They had gotten it in a prior trade. Instead of taking Denis Savard, the guy who was born in Quebec, played for the Montreal Juniors, and went on to be a Hockey Hall of Famer, Grundman made a mistake. He took Doug Wickenheiser. He shouldn't have taken Doug Wickenheiser. That was a terrible pick. Wickenheiser wasn't a bad player. He just wasn't great. He wasn't Denis Savard. He wasn't Larry Murphy. He wasn't Paul Coffey. He wasn't even the best hockey player in his family. That's Haley Wickenheiser. But Grundman did make other good picks. In the next draft, he took Mark Hunter. He had that pick from the Penguins. In exchange, the Penguins got Rod Schutt. Not a very good NHLer. And in the second round, Grundman took Chris Chelios. And in the seventh round, he took Tom Curvers. Grundman helped set the Habs up for their dominance under Serge Savard. I'm not trying to diminish what Savard did, but some of those players that won under Savard were drafted by Grundman. Grundman should be remembered more fondly than he is. The second guy to talk about is the big one, Irv Cross. He died yesterday at the age of 81. You probably remember Cross as being on the NFL Today, but when he was a corner for the Eagles and Rams, he was really good. In the mid to late 60s, Cross was one of the best corners in the game. Maybe he wasn't at the Bobby Boyd, Herb Adderley, or Cornell Green level, but he was at the Lenny Lyles, Jimmy Johnson, Bill Baird level. He was that good. He was a Pro Bowler in 64 and 65 for the Eagles. He had an 11 approximate value in 64 and a 10 approximate value in 65, according to Pro Football Reference. Then he was traded to the Rams and kept up his really good play. In 66, he had a 10 approximate value, 67 and 68, a 9 approximate value, and in 69, he went back to the Eagles and finished with a 7 approximate value. But Cross is best known for what he did on the NFL Today. And he was a trailblazer, make no mistake about it. He was the first black man to work as a sports analyst on national television. Then, in 1975, when he went over to the NFL Today, he became the first black man to co-anchor a network sports program. And I'm sure you can find clips of him on YouTube. I've seen some of the old clips. I don't remember exactly where I saw them, but he was very good. Him, Brent Musburger, and Phyllis George, who passed away in May, really revolutionized NFL news. And you think about all the former NFL players who transitioned over to talking about the game that are black, guys like Bart Scott, Randy Moss, Ray Lewis, Shannon Sharp, Tony Gonzalez, Deion Sanders, etc., etc., they wouldn't have been there without Cross. In 2009, the Pro Football Hall of Fame gave Cross the Pete Rozelle Radio Television Award. He became the first black man to win that award. Since then, guys like Tom Jackson and James Brown have won it. Hopefully Kurt Menefee gets it. They really all owe their success to Irv Cross. May Grundman and Cross rest in peace. Before I let you go, I want to tell you my plan for March Madness shows and NFL free agency. If you'll recall, my plan last year, before the coronavirus messed everything up, was to do the March Madness shows and then talk about NFL free agency. So basically it was to take a break from regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show, but still give you content. Just content geared towards one thing. I'm going to stick with that. I do think that's the best way to do it. I kind of like saving the NFL free agency stuff for later, because otherwise I'll be left scrambling to talk about every signing, and I'm sure I'm going to miss something. I'm not going to be able to devote proper time to it. More details will come out. Trust me, that's the way to go for the purposes of the Jacob Valk Show. But I did go above and beyond in my prep for what I'm going to do in the future. Here's how it's going to go. March 15th, just a Brooklyn Nets show. March 16th, no show. March 17th, first four preview. March 18th, my birthday. Hopefully I'll be at the Islanders game. The first game that they've allowed fans into this year. No show. March 19th, round of 64 preview. March 20th, no show. March 21st, round of 32 preview. March 22nd, no show. March 23rd, NFL free agency recap. March 24th, business as usual. March 25th, NBA trade deadline show. Now I'm going to skip some days. You are going to get Sweet 16 stuff, Elite 8 stuff, etc., etc. I just don't need to specify that. It's pretty common knowledge that that's what a sports talk show host is going to do. But there are some other things that I want to flesh out. March 29th, regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show, plus a New York Islanders show. March 31st, regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show, plus a New York Yankees season preview. April 1st, opening day, big MLB preview. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to serve as the regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show. April 5th, regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show plus a Brooklyn Nets show. April 12th, regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show plus a New York Islanders show that's going to be dedicated towards giving them a grade on what they did in advance of that day's trade deadline. I did that last year. I really enjoyed it. April 19th, regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show plus a New York Yankees show. And April 29th, New York Jets draft preview plus a regular episode of the Jacob Valk Show. I'll repeat that at the end of the Brooklyn Nets show, which is going to come your way tonight. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet at me at RealJacobValk. Regular episodes of the Jacob Valk Show come your way every weekday afternoon, obviously excluding the days that I just mentioned aren't going to have regular episodes. Until next time, I am Jacob Valk saying that I don't know what I should say to Richard Nixon if I ever see him. I'm glad he got over Watergate? I don't know.